We particularly enjoyed Copenhagen, Denmark, where 30% of the trips are made by bicycle. The Danish approach to bicycling is very appealing to women and families. Danish bicyclists are very compliant with traffic signals and will patiently wait for a signal to change, yielding to pedestrians. Danish bikes are oftentimes quite utilitarian and not as sport or recreational oriented as we're so used to seeing in the United States. Many Danes are very willing to ride bikes, including while speaking on a cell phone. Copenhagen has a population of 500,000 people, with bicycle and pedestrian usage summing to a 59% modal split, 20% transit, and 20% cars. On-street car parking is $5 per hour. The Danes ride their bikes at a casual pace. The bikes have a more upright style, and front baskets are quite common. People wear regular clothes while riding their bikes, and bicycle parking is provided everywhere, including within the street. Adult helmet usage was approximately 20 to 30%, more often on sport riders, but spread throughout the population. This included adults without helmets who had helmets on the children they were carrying. Cycle tracks were quite common, with Danish cyclists typically riding on the cycle track and not the street. Interactions with pedestrians were typically quite favorable. Use of the blue pavement marking for bikes was quite common. This bike lane was originally only 1/2 of its current width and had to be widened because it was so popular with bicyclists. Danes are quite willing to ride in traffic, including when they're carrying their children. The Danes do not use a lot of warning signs for bicycling, including this busy arterial intersection. Note the original width of the cycle track between the sidewalk and the street. There's a supplemental cycle track width that has been provided by consuming road space. You can see the supplemental asphalt ramp between the original cycle track curb and the original road lane. The blue pavement markings make the bike lane quite prominent. Look at the cargo bikes that Danish use to transport their children. This mother is transitioning from on-street to off-street. Note that her bicycle is steered via the rear wheel. Here is an alternate view of the on-street to off-street transition. While this off-street facility is not a standard, it seemed to work out quite well. Notice how favorably the bicyclists and pedestrians interact with each other without any close calls or collisions. Also note how the bicyclists interact with each other. There aren't any conflicts even though people are traveling at different speeds. Motorists are willing to yield to bicyclists making through movements at intersections. The use of slip lanes for bicycles is quite common in Copenhagen as well. These slip lanes allow through movement bicyclists to travel alongside an arterial without dealing with the traffic. This allows them to reach bicycle parking locations, and these slip lanes are also used by motorists to reach car parking locations. Danish are very energy conscious. A typical Dane only uses 1/2 the amount of annual energy that an American citizen does. The lights in our hotel rooms required the room key to operate and could not be left on when you left the room. While I'm not aware of a U.S. standard for these sort of slip lanes, they seem to work out quite well. People are quite used to them. You can see the car parking and the bicycle parking that are accessed via the slip lanes. This layout could be used in an American city, but would probably require modifications to the storm drainage system. Note the amount of bicycle traffic versus car traffic you see using this arterial street, which is located in front of the Tivoli Gardens amusement park. Here is how a bicycle slip lane transitions back to on-street bike lane. This bicycle slip lane was located so that bicyclists would not conflict with bus passengers at an adjoining bus stop. This Copenhagen family has bicycles equipped for transportation. Note the front and rear baskets. Use of bicycle helmets remains rare, however. Bicyclists in Copenhagen are routinely accommodated, oftentimes via these cycle tracks. Notice the amount of space given to bicyclists in a downtown area where motorists are prohibited from making through movements. Notice how these bicyclists approach and patiently queue on the cycle track at the signalized intersection. We did not see many people wearing specialized bicycling clothes. Note this woman riding a miniskirt. Most Danish wear regular street clothes when riding a bike. Right turn on red is not allowed in Denmark. This contributes to pedestrian safety. These bicyclists patiently wait at the traffic signal, yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk. Motorist use of the right turn signals is quite common, and they use their mirrors to scan for cyclists in the adjoining cycle track. This helps to reduce conflicts and collisions. Even though some of the blue markings are worn, it is still quite obvious it is the bike lane. Note that the right-turning motorist in the silver car is scanning for overtaking bicyclists, even as they emerge from the shadow. The prevalence of right-turning motorists here has created a wear pattern in the blue marking. Even so, the bike lane remains quite prominent. At this downtown arterial intersection, look at how the taxi driver yields to pedestrians in the crosswalk, including the family with the baby stroller. Consider the equivalent operations in the United States. Here is another view of motorists yielding to through-movement bicyclists. Note that it is the motorist who's scanning for the bicycle traffic and not the bicyclist scanning for the motorist. This requires a lot of attention on the part of the motorists as they wait for successive platoons of bicyclists, including emerging from the shadows. We routinely heard from our local hosts about the importance of safety in numbers. They viewed increasing the number of bicyclists as more important than requiring bicyclists to wear helmets. There's only one bicyclist in this clip who's wearing a helmet. The increased number of bicyclists results in increased motorist awareness of the likely presence of bicyclists, contributing to an overall safety effect. You can see both the motorist and bicyclist traffic signals at this intersection, with motorists yielding to the cyclists and making lagging right turns. Look at how the bicyclists and motorists interact here. I was actually stationary astride my bicycle while I was shooting this video. This trucker could see me in his mirrors and made certain that I was not going to be advancing through the intersection prior to making his right turn. Even with this level of awareness, bicycle fatalities are approximately 30 to 40% of Copenhagen's annual traffic fatalities, with pedestrians at 20%. The two primary reasons for bicycle fatalities are right hook turns and oncoming left turns. 62% of pedestrian fatalities in Copenhagen are due to cars, and 10% are due to bicycles. One significant reason for Danish transportation safety is the Children's Traffic Club, which has had a 50% participation rate for school children over the past 50 years. Children receive information annually, which is targeted by age. They also have national TV spots. This is a very professional organization promoting bike and pedestrian safety as part of its message. It's very family-oriented with parent information, stickers, magnets, right and wrong comics, and other things. They have a campaign publication titled "Every Accident is One Too Many," and their 5 targets are speed, alcohol, seatbelt use, bike crash, and ped crashes, as these are over 80% of all crashes nationally. As a safety countermeasure, some cycle tracks have been modified so that through-movement bicyclists merge with the right-turning motorists in advance of the intersection to reduce conflicts and collisions. This bicyclist is running a red light, creating a conflict with the right-turning motorist. At this signalized intersection, there are traffic signals for both motorists and bicyclists. You can see a upper mount and a side-mounted bicycle traffic signal here. Note that each of the following 9 right-turning motorists will be using their right turn signals and yielding to bicyclists in the blue bike lane area. Also note that there are no signs telling motorists to yield to bicyclists here. It's just something that takes place as a result of their national culture. In a moment, you will see a bicyclist run a red light, creating a conflict with the motorists who do have their own exclusive lagging right turn indication. Even so, the right-turning motorist, with their turn signal, yields to that bicyclist. Traffic signals show a simultaneous red and yellow indication prior to the green indication. This intersection, motorists make a through movement with the bicyclist through movement, then the motorist's protected right turn is a lagging movement. Here is an overhead and side-mounted bicycle traffic signal. Notice that both the red and yellow phases come up for the bicycle and motorist signal in advance of the green. The motorist right turn is made as a protected, lagging movement. I was surprised they did not use visors on their signal heads, as frankly it was difficult to see the signal indication under some lighting conditions. Overall, I was pleased to see how well motorists and bicyclists interacted at these signalized intersections. Beyond the signal indications, there seemed to be a cultural sense of how to behave. Look at how many bicyclists will be making a through movement in this clip, while a motorist patiently waits to make a right turn. We noted that Danish motorists seem to be more responsible, controlled, thoughtful, and attentive to bicyclists than what we're typically used to here in the United States of America. With a 30% bicyclist mode split and a 20% motorist mode split in Copenhagen, more trips are made by bike than by car. Consider an American mother's willingness to ride in traffic with a child, as this Danish mother is doing. Overall, there is a much different social compact between motorists and bicyclists in Denmark than what we're used to here in the United States. On a daily basis, Copenhagen bicyclists ride 700,000 miles. Annually, this saves the equivalent of 90,000 tons of carbon dioxide than if they had driven cars. Even with all the emphasis on bicycling, there's still a need for traffic calming measures to reduce motorist speed. One method is the provision of red dots. While these are not a standard treatment, the red dots in this busy commercial district have had a proven effect on reducing motorist speeds. With a 20% modal split, transit usage equals car usage in Copenhagen. There's a natural symbiosis between bicycling and transit. Conflicts are reduced by setting cycle tracks behind transit stops so that cyclists will have access to transit but will not create conflicts with pedestrians getting on and off the buses. Bicycle parking is provided at transit stations, and Copenhagen taxi cabs have bike racks that can carry 2 bikes. Bicycle parking areas are provided within the street, and special pavers on sidewalks are detectable by people with visual disabilities, with intersecting pavers leading to the doors of buildings. Pedestrian refuge medians are common in Copenhagen, with individual sets of pedestrian signals for crossing each direction of travel. This provides safety and efficiency. Danish countdown pedestrian signal heads use red numbers to show the remaining time until the walk indication, with green numbers used to show the remaining duration of the walk time. At complex intersection, pedestrian refuges are provided with individual sets of pedestrian signals, each with their own timing, to cross individual halves of the street. This is very efficient as it allows motorists to continue on one half of the street if a pedestrian crossing is not yet taking place. The Danish have off-street trails, for example, around lakes or using old railroad rights-of-way. Some of these old rail trails result in mid-block, unsignalized crossings. However, refuge medians are provided to make it easier for cyclists to make a safe crossing. The off-street trail system complemented the on-street facilities we saw in Copenhagen. The Danish are very proud of their environmental efforts, and we're pleased to point out that the water in Copenhagen Harbor is clean enough to swim in. Previously, this area had been an oil refinery and was now being redeveloped into a very popular residential area. On some of the railroad corridors, it was necessary to replace the original bridges to provide additional clearance over the streets. This provided opportunities for new, modern, contemporary public art bridges. Overall, what we saw reflected decades of efforts to make the city more bicycle friendly. As a result of a significant process, a bicycle trail through the Copenhagen cemetery was finally built. We were standing adjacent to the grave of Hans Christian Andersen watching the cyclists ride through the cemetery, including with their families, and having a nice, pleasant experience.